right? We just click on that. Yeah, you wanna come? I know.
We cannot go, man.
No.
You tell the appointment, they have to wait.
Yeah, we wanted Ram part of this too, because Vincent's saying he's killing it out there, you know, putting like deals together and signing up buyers. But yeah, like, what are you guys seeing out there? What are you guys experiencing? It's what, 5 weeks since the change, 4 weeks? A little about a month since the change? Like, what are you guys seeing out there? Are you guys signing up buyers as buyer clients?
I signed my first one.
Yeah, and how was it? Can you guys hear us?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Yeah, you guys are coming
Yes.
in pretty.
This situation for me was easy because it's someone that comes recommended, like I was referred.
Okay.
You know, someone put my name out there, so then they listen to me. And I think also with Spanish people, it's easy. Once they trust you, whatever you tell them, that's it. So it was my first one after I came back to work,
And they had no problem signing on the commission.
yeah.
You had no problem explaining to them about how compensation is paid.
The commission.
I explained it to them and they say, okay, no
Okay.
problem. So that's why I think I was. It was a little bit easier because they already come prepared, like I'm gonna work with Maria. I'm gonna work with her because someone recommended to work with her.
Yeah.
They trust her, so I'm gonna work with her.
Okay.
And I went straight forward. I say 3%. I said I'm gonna try my best to get it from the seller side, but whatever they don't compensate, they will be able to put the difference. Then you have to put it. So they say, okay, no problem. Tell us what you
Okay, so I wanted to talk to you guys about something I experienced yesterday. Hi, Jay. Hi, want to join us? So yesterday I had a buyer call me. And, you know, somebody that I've never met before, she wasn't even referred to me by anyone, she just Googled me. And she said, I'm looking for a house and I need help. So I said, okay, not a problem. What home are you, what type of house are you looking for? And she's like, actually, I already saw the house and I want to, you know, I think I want to give an offer. And I said, okay, not a problem. Yeah, but it gets a little complicated, right? Because of what's going on right now. And I said, okay, not a problem. I understand you want representation and you want guidance. She goes, yes, you know, it's our first purchase. And I just want to make sure that I'm making, you know, the right decisions. And I said, okay, so when you went to property, who did you see it with? And did you sign any documents? And she said, I don't know who I saw it with. I think it's the seller's agent. And my husband has been communicating with her, and no, we didn't sign anything at all. So I said to her, you know, have you heard of the recent changes in the real estate industry? And she said no. So how do you think I should approach this, guys? In situations like this, what should I do? I would just schedule up like my show to that place and sign the paperwork like usual to that place.
Yeah, but if the listening and remember, then they already go with me.
Yeah, but they didn't sign. They didn't sign anything, right? So I continued the conversation and I said, listen, I need to know who you saw the property with. Was it the listing agent? And she's like, I really don't know the
But they
name.
know.
I said, okay, give me the phone number. And the phone number matched the phone number of the listing agent, right? So does procuring cause go into effect with this?
No.
No, right? But the husband apparently called the agent back, right, after our brief conversation, because I was supposed to meet with them. And the listing agent says to them, my sellers are not offering out a buyer agent commission. So if you decide to move forward with a buyer agent, you're gonna be paying more. Right? So how do you guys deal with that?
How I would deal with it is, you know, you have the listing agent negotiating for the benefit of the seller, right? And we're talking about a few percent versus them trying to get you to pay, 100%,
Correct.
right? So they're stepping over maybe a little brokerage fee, and they're seeing that as the obstacle when the real obstacle is the entire process of purchasing the property.
So you guys have to listen to the buyer's cue, right? The reason she called me, she said, was because she needed guidance. They're a first-time home buyer, and they want to make sure that they're not making mistakes, right? So my approach to her was, you called me because I assume you read my reviews, you saw the level of experience that I have in this neighborhood. And you understand that if you deal with the seller's agent directly, the seller's agent has a fiduciary duty to work in their seller's best interest to get their seller, their client, the best price possible. But you had mentioned that you needed guidance and you want to make sure that you're paying a fair price and that you're not overlooking any potential issues with the home, right? So I have another call with her today, but they're supposed to discuss and get back to me. But that's what we're.
Did you talk about your agreement with them?
No, I haven't gone that far yet. But this is what we're seeing, guys, right?
But my question is, in investigation, would you sign with your buyer agency, or you would sign the one time showing of the place?
I would probably try the full buyer contract first, right? Because they're already sold on me and entirely me, hopefully, right? So, but we're gonna get a lot of pushbacks, right? We're gonna get a lot of pushbacks probably from the listing agent because of this, because first of all, they already showed them the property. And what I could say is, yeah, but you broke the rule, you didn't get anything signed.
It was always like that before that, like I have been in situation when the buyer, saw the place with the listing agent, he gave her an offer.
Lily, I have a question.
Oh, wait, hold on 1 second, and then?
He gave her an offer, and the offer got accepted. And then he came home, and all his relatives said that, oh, you should have your own agent.
Yeah.
So he got kicked out, called me, he came to the office and he said, I wanna hire you as a buyer's agent.
Yeah.
I already gave an offer got accepted. She just asked me to give her the buyer's agreement.
Okay.
And I asked him, did you sign anything? And he said no. So when I called the agent, they said on a schedule appointment, and I told her that, he submitted you an offer, but he hired me. I said, you cannot do that. I showed him the place, the offer got accepted. And I asked her, did you sign with his agency disclosure, sharing that he representing the seller? But she said, no.
Yeah.
So I said, he was confused. He thought that you didn't represent him.
Yeah.
He just realized that you actually representing the seller.
Yeah.
She did not accept the price that when I showed him, she said we already have another offer. We ended up giving 5,000 more, but he was willing to pay that because he wanted to have his own
piece of money. Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of times, guys, it doesn't come down to like numbers, right? A lot of times it's like they need to feel like they're getting guided. And a lot of times they also want to make sure that the house is okay. It's not just about the price, it's like long-term potential issues too that they would have to deal with. Right? Did you guys hear Olga, by the way? I know she was speaking very low.
Yes, sorry, Olga, I didn't mean to interrupt you. My apologies. But my question to Lily is, a buyer calls you up. I mean, it's a kind of a home run right away. You have business, but how you approach it, would you, when you speak to that buyer, if you sit down, get them to sit down with you, would you sign up a single property deal, or would you try to do it on ongoing and work exclusively with that buyer?
I would attempt to always do the ongoing, and you guys should all continue. You guys should all try to get the long-term contract and not just settle with a single property contract first, right? Because if for whatever reason that property doesn't work out, I don't wanna go through the whole process again of getting them to sign another contract. How long
Right,
is
right.
one?
Makes sense. Yeah.
I do all 30 days.
30 days? Yeah, I think 6 months is fine though, because you want to lock them in, right? It's like locking in a listing. So instead of listing a property, you're listing a person. Right? But I mean, it's gonna be interesting, and these are gonna be battles that we're gonna deal with, right? And the reverse could happen, guys. Imagine you showed that buyer that property and you got nothing signed. And then they found another agent and they said, I want you to represent me now, right? So I know some of you guys, right, are probably gonna try to cut corners and not get contract signed because nobody's checking them.
I think that's happening a lot.
That's happening a lot, I'm telling you it is. Because a lot of agents are very confused, because I still have agents asking me, hey, Lily, is the seller offering out a buyer agent commission? And I always respond the same way, right? Yeah, I'm like, my sellers are fully cooperating with buyer agents. I always start with that so that they don't get. So I always start with, my sellers are fully cooperating with buyer agents. You should have a contract in place prior to touring the listing. So all you need to do is incorporate your terms and conditions into your offer. And then an agent writes back, so you're not offering out a buyer agent commission. And I said, again,
It's not what I said.
instead of as per my last email, because Vincent sent me that meme, right? They're like fighting words.
Excuse me. Hi, good morning, everyone.
It's here, stop.
Hello. Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Wait, one second, Vincent's being annoying.
You got me.
Hold on.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah,
What about the investors out here that's telling agents, oh, don't worry about that. I'm going to give you a 1.5%. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And they still bring in buyers and then not following the new rules.
these investors are buyers or?
No, investors that have houses, they don't even have the houses on the MLS, some of them, but they're telling people, don't even worry about the new rules. Just bring your buyers. I'm gonna give you 1.5%.
Yeah,
But
those
in writing.
are open listings, right?
Yeah.
Those are open listings. And you still need a buyer contract with your buyer. It doesn't matter what the seller says.
Okay, thank you.
Sellers, those are open listings. There's no contract, there's no obligation to anyone. They can say whatever they want. But you need your buyer contract still. Because what's gonna stop them from going directly to the investor?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So what else are you guys experiencing out there? That was my story for just yesterday, but every day it's like a new adventure.
I had a completely different experience. It was very interesting because this buyer reached out to me, my listing, wanted to see it. We set up a time for him to come into the office so we can discuss it. Went through a kind of a consultation appointment, and then
Consultation of what it was
like a
about,
buyer's consultation appointment,
but it was your listing.
my listing. So we set up an appointment here. As we went through the entire process, it seemed like everything was going well. Where I see that it kind of went off to the side was that the minute we started talking about, okay, well, there's some changes that have occurred. As of now, you have to have your own representation. It makes sense. So we went through what we do as a service, what we're gonna do for you, how we're gonna work with you. And then we mentioned what the commission was. he wasn't taken back. He said, oh, no, I completely understand. And I said, yeah, so, before we look at more properties, we just have to make sure that the documents are signed. He said, well, I sold my house in the past and I never have to go through this. I said, well, of course, this is something brand new. This is something that they've been doing before. This is something that just started a few weeks ago. So he said, oh, I don't know, I gotta think about it, I gotta talk to somebody and then get back to you. I said, that's fine, unfortunately, we can't really take the next step until you sign this document, you know? So he said, all right, let me get back to you and see how it goes. We followed up with it, he said, no, I'll get back to you, and since then, haven't heard anything.
Are you guys sending links, articles to back up that this is in fact a new change?
No, I didn't.
Why not? Why not? If CNN is saying it, if Fox News is saying it, if it's being, discussed in news articles, why not provide proof that this is the new norm?
Yeah.
Instead of you guys just saying this is the new norm and that's just how it is, back it up. Right?
I'm confused, that's what school is.
Why this?
Why you start consultation with the buyer?
Because they weren't gonna buy the apartment.
Oh,
Yeah.
but you showed them that buyer,
I showed them that apartment.
and they did not,
And they were just like, oh, I'm looking in these areas, and I'm like, all right, so I look at it as, okay, cool, first initial appointment, I'm not gonna get you to sign anything, let's meet at another appointment so we can sit down and have that conversation. So,
Yeah. So what I do, so I have some listing agents here, right? What I do is, as listing agents, we get a lot of phone calls from direct buyers, don't we?
Yeah.
Right? So what do you guys do when that initial phone call comes in?
I
set up an
qualify them for that particular property.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanna make sure that they qualify.
Yeah,
I use it as a stepping platform.
yeah.
So it's a way for.
Kind of like what Michelle said, right? Give a little, then take a little, give a little, then take a little. So you could, as listing agents, first, I always still ask them, are you currently being represented by a buyer's agent? Or are you coming in as an unrepresented buyer? That's a very simple question, right? And a lot of times they're just like unrepresented. So then I'm like, okay, not a problem. I need you to sign some documents, right? That you understand that you're coming in unrepresented, and they also include agency and fair housing, because you guys understand fair housing agency is still required, right? Okay, so we use Hello Work, where when I just send out one link, it sends them the non-representation form, the fair housing form, and the agency form.
You have to pay for that?
Now you get up to 50 per month.
What's the,
Hello Work.
Fair housing,
Agency,
yeah,
and the EXP has the non-representation form, right? Yes, we went over that. In the event that that property is not for them, right? Then you guys could start discussing about this new norm that has happened. So give a little, take a little. Let them see what they wanted to see, then start
So
talking.
someone calls you on your listing, and then the first question you ask them is, are you currently being represented by a buyer's agent, or you coming in as a non-represented buyer? You ask them right away.
Only for listings that I have to be present, otherwise I give the leads out.
what if it's open house?
Open house, we still ask them. Everyone that's walking in, are you a buyer? Are you an agent? Do you have an agent? Or are you unrepresented? Right? But you guys understand, open houses, they don't need a buyer contract, right? They don't need any of that. Right? You are representing the seller and they're just touring a property. They're just, open houses are exempt.
from these documents.
Correct. Correct.
They go to open houses, they don't even sign anything.
No.
Like open house, you sign it on the story form, right?
And
Yeah.
fair housing.
Mhm. Agency and fair housing still needs to be signed, guys.
Housing, yeah.
It's too much paperwork.
I know, it's a lot of paperwork, but imagine, oh, remember that story I told you guys about? In, Middle Village, I had that house for like 1.68 million. So the buyer, had an agent, signed absolutely no documents, right? saw the property, and then decided to come in as an unrepresented buyer. Because he said, I didn't sign any documents. Yeah. So for those of you, and, what am I gonna do, right? I still have to, I opened in another agent, some Chinese agent. No, I showed them the place. A Chinese agent.
So our agent worked with the buyer, but he didn't sign anything, so then the buyer went back to leave.
Yeah, as an unrepresented.
Right, because he didn't sign anything.
No,
Right.
I'm just saying, all of this, what's going on right now, all of this happened before,
Yeah,
like,
but you guys, but now you have the ability to use the rules
To make them.
in your favor, to let them
Yeah.
know that this is the new norm.
Yeah.
And you absolutely need to sign, because guys, these buyers, they're gonna go behind your back, they're gonna go to the listing agent direct. My job as a listing agent, if you're not following the rules, my job is to still sell the property for my client, my seller. So I'm presenting the offer, right? And then I got them to sign a non-representation form, because if that agent comes back to say, hey, it's my buyer, I do have a buyer contract, and blah, 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 they're responsible.
What do you do if you have a past client who you worked with in the past? Help them purchase a property, and then now they're back on the market, rules are changing, they're looking for another property. You would still press them for the form?
Yeah, you have to. And you send them articles that it's the new norm. Remember, NAR has these PDFs.
Yeah.
That you guys could give out. But I also send them, the CNN article
Michelle,
that quotes, our CEO, Leo, right? So you guys, like Ed is saying, like, what, he sat down, the guy was thinking about it, he was reluctant to sign a buyer agreement, and now he kind of ghosted him, right?
transform, disappear.
But I feel like if you back it up with CNN articles, if you back it up with Google articles, Yahoo articles, whatever, right? To show them, like, listen, I didn't make this shit up, you know?
I'm just saying those buyers, they're gonna be confused because you're the only one who's asking, another agent should say, yeah, no problem.
But you could say a lot of these other agents are not following the new rules because they either are not properly trained, right? Or they're just afraid of this new change, but you have to see that this is what the new norm is. So, I mean, you guys could do the same, go back to how it was before, but if those buyers decide to kick you to the side and go straight to the listing agent, you've just done all that work for nothing.
Excuse me, Lily, one more question, might be a silly one, but if you have a buyer's agreement, right? For a percentage of the selling price, and you find a place on the MLS and you call up the listing agent, do you still ask the listing agent if the seller is giving out concessions?
I lost you, PJ, can't hear you, but I'm assuming you asked me if I'm gonna ask the listing agent if they're paying out a buyer's agent?
Correct, yes.
Never. I don't care.
Maybe I'm confused, but when you sign up an agreement with a buyer, do you not tell the buyer, this is what I work for, but the listing agent may compensate some money towards the commission?
The seller,
Yeah, the seller may compensate, right? But we
Yeah.
wouldn't know that until we submit our offer, right? So when I submit my offer, regardless of what the listing agent tells me, I'm gonna try to incorporate my compensation in the offer.
Yeah, so and in doing so, that means why would the listing agent,
We're not hearing you. See if you can fix your mic.
can you hear me now?
Yeah?
No, yes?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just saying if you're going to incorporate your commission in the offer, yeah, why would the seller or the listing agent say, okay, that's great? Why would he offer any money out? No?
All right, I'm losing you again, but why would the seller say okay?
why wouldn't he say okay? And yeah, I mean, why would the seller want to, if you're already collecting as a buyer agent, you're already collecting your money from the buyer?
I'm not collecting it from the buyer. You cannot collect more than what's in your contract, right?
I know that, yeah.
If
But
if I have a contract with Ed for 3%,
yeah,
and I submit an offer for a property that he likes, I'm gonna say, hey, Mr. Seller, or hey, Mr. Listing Agent, my client loves your co-op. Here's an offer for 200,000, which includes my buyer agent compensation of 3% already included with the price. So
okay.
at the closing, the seller's gonna pay from the proceeds. I'm not collecting from the seller 3 and then from Ed 3. That's 6. You can't collect above and beyond what is in your
What's
contract.
agreed? I know that, yeah, but
I lost you, PJ. I can't hear anything you're saying.
yeah, it doesn't work. I'm sorry.
Maybe you want to use the chat and we'll just read your chat.
Yeah,
Yeah, I could hear you before, but if you want to write your questions in the chat, we'll answer you guys via
Okay.
chat.
Excuse me, I think what he's trying to say is if your buyer, if you put in the offer to the seller that's including your commission, but you don't know what or if the seller is paying anything out, and the seller accepts the offer, at that time, is it going to reduce the money that's coming from the offer? I think that's what he's trying to say. Because what if the seller's paying out 1.5%, but
Well,
you
agent, my job is to explain to my seller what the whole offer is, right? So if I was the listing agent and I received an offer like that, I would say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this buyer and his agent has submitted an offer for 200,000, which includes a buyer agent commission of 3%. Let's say hypothetically, I took a listing agreement and my listing size is 2.5%. So I would say to my seller, for this particular offer, you are going to net 200,000 minus 5.5%. And then if my seller accepts, then Ed or the buyer's agent should send that form confirmation of seller to pay buyer's agent to have it signed prior to the contract being signed. So it also validates that the seller is fully aware that the offer price of 200,000 includes a buyer agent commission of 3%. I'm already secure because when I took the listing, my listing says 2.5%. Got it?
Got it.
I'm not gonna kick tires because now Ed makes more than me because I didn't negotiate 3%. The difference now is that they've decoupled commission. Back then, I could have easily taken 5%, right? Keep 2.5 and pay out 2.5. It's pretty much the same, right? Instead of everything being in the front end now, they've decoupled commission so that it's in the back end. Right? We don't know what the owner's gonna net until the offer comes in and the terms are included in that offer. Right? So the buyer's confirmation of, okay, here's something. Is it this one? Yeah, I think so, yeah. Direct compensation from the seller, right? We have this form in the Google Drive, that I sent you guys.
Oh, sorry. Because I'm trying to really make sure I understand these forms.
Do you guys understand? Does that answer your question, PJ and Kathy?
Pretty much, yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's just very spotty.
I don't, yeah, maybe I'm a bit foggy this morning myself. I didn't.
What's that?
So I submitted an offer with an agent And I submitted it the same exact way. Hey, this offer is being submitted with 2% commission paid out to the buyer's agent at closing.
Yeah,
When they came back and countered my offer, they said, we're countering your offer, but you need to collect your commission from your buyer, they tell me. So I know you said it before, and I just wanted to kind of, I guess, maybe reiterate it if you can, but in that instance, I know you said, hey, I'm submitting my offer, and it's not that your seller's paying it, it's more that it's coming out of the buyer's, I guess,
yeah.
mortgage or whatever the case is. So how would you respond to that?
I said, I am collecting it from my buyer. They're just financing it into the purchase price, right?
So then
If I'm gonna collect it direct from my buyer, then we're dropping our offer price by 2%. It's the same for your seller, right? So why don't we all just make it easier and let my buyer finance it? That's how it was in the past. A lot of these agents can't understand the grasp.
Yeah, that's, because
Right.
she gave me a lot of kickback for that. She
Yeah,
was like, no, like, you gotta get your own commission, and I'm like,
I got that too.
mhm.
Because they say my client needs to pay the transfer fee and it's more. because
It's
of
not more, guys.
commission.
What is it, $40 more? What is it? Let's, let's say 200,000
So when you go back
percent.
and then you present the new offer minus that percent.
It's $84 difference, guys. If it's a $200,000 property at a 3% commission, the transfer tax to the seller's difference is $84. What I did was 200,000 times 3% times 1.4%,
And the 1.4% is city and
City and
state. Okay.
when it's less than half a mil. So you guys, you have to know quick comebacks, right? Because if you stutter, they're like, they think they're right, right? So I had a listing agent also say to me, you know, my seller doesn't want to pay a buyer's agent. I said, we're financing it in, it's included in the price, or I could resubmit an offer and I'll drop the commission and the offer price would be different. She's like, no, then he won't accept it. I'm like, do you understand the comp that you're looking at prior to August 17th included the commission in the price, right? And she was like, quiet. So she also said, but, you know, and then she kind of confused seller's concession with compensation, right? She's like, she didn't fully understand the difference between, but I said yes for seller's concession, so add it in as a seller's concession. I'm like, why? Why? He doesn't need closing costs. We're just adding it, it's the same thing, you know?
Yeah.
But on MLS, it says seller concession and then write yes or no. It's not a way for them to do the commission.
You
Right.
you could include it as commission,
But then
but
you don't know how much the agent, like she said.
it
you
doesn't
don't know-
solidify your
Yeah, that's what I heard.
compensation, because the money goes back to the buyer.
And the buyer makes.
Maybe they'll pay you from that.
So we have a contract.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
do. But it's more solidified if you include it in the price the seller pays, and it's just, you know,
Let's say Ed gives you an offer and he puts 3%, and then you go back and then you say, we're only gonna give you 1.5. You count it and you say only 1.5.
Okay, then he's gonna subtract the difference and say, okay, I will get paid directly by my client. and
Mhm.
close it.
so now my new offer is 1.5% less, and then tell the buyer to pay you a
I
closing.
probably wouldn't just say, okay, fine, I'd be like, all right, 2%, maybe 2%.
No, you should not decrease your value, listen, why would?
No, I wouldn't decrease it, I'm.
That's
I'm
for those-
I think you
For
also
those
need to
properties that you think, oh, it's gonna be so easy, you know, just show him what, it's gonna be the most difficult transaction, because I remember, I signed the agreement for 3%, and I showed you one house, and I was like, that was so bad for them, and I told you, and the agent, they gave only 1.5, and I said, you know, I'm just gonna go, it was the nightmare transaction, we did so many inspections, the house was like a parent. That was the most difficult thing, so if you sign the agreement, just go for it.
Yeah,
Stick with it.
100%.
Fight for it. Okay, but you guys need to know how to fight for it. That's the reason we're doing this roundtable, because we're all experiencing these issues, right? And us listing agents will tell you what we're seeing out there. And these agents are getting their deals taken away from them because they're not doing things properly or they're not explaining it properly.
I think they don't sign anything, they're just using the fact that nobody's really checking them.
Yeah, but I also have, I mean, great news for my sellers, right? Because I also have this listing right now that we have an accepted offer. And the buyer's agent is only collecting a commission of 2%, right? And then another offer, a higher offer came in, but he's asking for 3% commission. And I said to him, the net to my seller is less because of your commission. So let me know what you want to do. Okay, so you guys could actually use the compensation as a way to still negotiate and get your buyers, your seller client a better net. Buyer client agrees 3%, but wants reduction if seller is offering a concession.
Hi, I have a question. So I have a client.
Reduce the 3% commission?
Yeah, a concession is also inflating the price, right? So what's the purpose of that? Because if, you know, why not just say that that extra 3% is the buyer agent commission instead of saying it's the seller's concession? Because seller's concession isn't, we can't say that seller concession is the buyer agent commission. That's against the rules. Right?
Right.
You guys understand?
And I
Yeah,
think
I think
he
so.
also had mentioned, like the brokers had mentioned it, don't confuse the seller concession with the buyer's agency compensation. So
Yeah.
keep them separate. So
Keep them separate.
I wouldn't even shoot for the concession either, just state what your income is, like, this is what I get paid, this is my percentage, that's what it is.
I
Don't
think
make it a
concession is
concession.
needed when the buyer needs like money for the closing.
Yeah,
Yeah, if they.
concession is like renovation credits, right? Or it could be
Phone call.
towards closing costs. But it doesn't guarantee, like, you can't individually dictate what that concession is for. Like, you can't say, okay, I added a 3% seller's concession into the offer, so that 3% is mine. You can't say that. Okay?
Okay.
So don't confuse the two.
I wanna recap a new scenario. I have a listing right now. When filling out the paperwork, there's gonna be a section where I'm gonna say I'm getting X amount as a listing agent.
Correct.
And then there's another section that, there's gonna be unrepresented,
Correct.
right? Or represented by.
Unrepresented.
There's only one option.
There's only one option.
The new
That means like the direct buy, that comes
It's
unrepresented.
open house, the buyer come and.
No, I wanna know about a listing, no open house.
Yeah, so if
Yeah.
a buyer
Yeah,
comes
they
to
would
your
be
property
overlap.
with no agent, they are considered unrepresented. That's why Lily says the first thing she asks them when they come in is, are you a buyer, are you an agent, do you have an agent, are you working with an agent, did you sign any agreements with that agent, or are you coming in as an unrepresented buyer? The unrepresented
Then I
buyer,
get this one and then.
that's when you would.
It's
The
same like,
unrepresented portion in the listing is the total. Do you guys understand? So when you're filling it out, let's say you take 3% listing. And if the buyer comes unrepresented, you're gonna put a 6 over there, right? It's not 3 and 3. Because if you do 3 and 3, that means you're collecting
Just-
0 from the unrepresented, so your total is 3. But if you do listing side 3, and then if you read the language for unrepresented buyer, it says the total commission to EXP would be, and then that's when you write 6.
And then that.
so it's up to you, if you wanna do, you do 3 and 3.
No,
that-
Lily said that he just did it.
3 and
At
6,
that
or
point-
I do,
If the buyer came in, damn, I just had a scenario in my head.
Excuse me.
At that point, if the buyer came in unrepresented, they move forward, submit an offer, gets accepted, you close on the property. That's coming out of the total amount that was offered from that buyer?
Yeah, the seller pays you 6%.
Okay, so okay.
How do I explain my client, the seller, about offering pay meant to the buyer's agent. If in the contract, there's only unrepresented, how do I talk to them about
We just
paying the buyer's agent?
In the event when we do, for example, an open house and the buyer comes in and decides to submit me an offer, I still represent you as my client, but I can still have to help them to go through the process. That means I'm working with the authority.
This part, I get.
So you're talking about paying out.
I'm a buyer's agent, to pay the buyer's agent.
So what
The buyer's agent?
yeah, that's the other form. That's the other form that you showed us for.
Let me give you guys an example.
No, I'm filling out the listing paperwork right now.
I get you, but.
There
that's
is
not
no section, there is absolutely no section to indicate what a seller is going to pay a
The
buyer's
buyer's
agent.
Okay.
Right.
When I take a listing, I say to my sellers, because of the new rules changes, we don't know what the total compensation may or may not be. What we do know is the compensation that we are going to, agree on, right? But a buyer and their agent now is required by law, by the rules, to establish their compensation, right? Because NAR has decoupled commissions. So one agent might submit an offer to me and say it includes a 2% commission, and another agent might say, here's my offer with a 3% commission. What you and I only care about is what you net, right?
Yeah.
So even if, let's say, I don't want to say to a buyer's agent, our cap is going to be this percentage, because what if they're offering you 20,000 more and they want an 8% commission, but you're going to net more from that than somebody who's offering you less, but at a 2% commission? Wouldn't you want to deal with the 8%, listing agent, because their offer is stronger? And they're like, yeah, of course. Like, okay, so let's not put a cap. And all we're gonna say is we're open to negotiating with buyer agents, and we're listening to all terms and conditions. What Kim said, my eyes, an example of what is allowed, right? Seller is willing to offer seller concession. Seller is willing to offer XX amount in seller concession. All seller concessions are negotiable. Seller is willing to consider compensation to a buyer's agent. Or seller is willing to consider X amount towards a buyer broker fee. All terms are negotiable.
We can say those things.
Those four.
Where is that?
I'll send it to you guys.
Thank you.
Who should I text it to here? Huh. You? And put it,
Oh, so that.
it's okay, I'm gonna put it to Vincent.
Oh, hey.
It's on a phone though, they can talk.
How will we get it from you?
I'm gonna send it to the.
We are a VIP.
Okay.
Oh, dear.
No, Sue was asking this question. We've given you a hard time.
Who? Sue?
Yeah, so start.
So Sue, come in.
I'm gonna put another story because I wanna focus on this because I don't completely understand.
I know, that's why we're doing this, because a month later, I know a lot of you guys are still confused.
Yeah, and there
Right.
is a mess out there and then they confuse me more, these agents, and I'm going to get a listing right now, and then in this particular situation, I feel like I need to prove to this, if I'm an investor and I need to prove my value.
Yeah.
And, like he keeps me over there and I just wanna be super prepared.
Okay. Yeah, I
Excuse
mean, the purpose of these trainings, right, so that you guys could be fully prepared and you could display your level of expertise and what value you're bringing them. Why are they gonna sign with you as opposed to somebody else? Right, but yeah, so those are the 4 things that you guys could, include. Oh, Ed, did I send it to you?
Oh. Do you hear me?
I
Yes,
can
now
hear
we-
you.
Oh. Hi, I have a question. Because I have,
Anna, we can't hear you. Please text, type in the chat.
oh, I did.
Oh, okay. If you have an agreement, can you cancel it at any time? You could you gotta sign off on it, right? Like
Okay.
there's an agreement, the same way that we could cancel listing agreements, you could cancel, buyer contracts too.
Okay,
You could also add something in there, like, but you have to understand that it's not just one-sided. Like the buyer will have the opportunity to also cancel, but they should give a valid reason why, not because now this buyer agent is gonna do it for, 2%.
How do we cancel? Do we just rip it off or there is a form saying to cancel? Because they can go and say, I cancel my contract with you, and then we talk about it.
I don't know if there's a cancellation. I know for listings, there's a cancellation form or a withdrawal. There's like two different.
Withdrawal. Yeah.
I don't think LIBOR, let me search under the LIBOR forms if there's a cancellation form for buyer contracts. I didn't see one yet, so we would probably have to create a cancellation ourselves. And then your broker of record, which is Kim Canavan, right, would have to sign off on it.
Yes, because imagine they say that and then I didn't do anything, I keep working for them and they just say, no, I cancel, and then they go.
Yeah, you can't verbally just cancel.
Okay,
Document
I
it.
think it should be in writing, with the email, if decided not to work with each other.
Mhm.
I mean, otherwise.
Some
we
sort of
have
agreement.
liability.
So, right now, also, how I solidify the commission portion of who pays what, my transaction coordinator now puts it on the deal sheet, right? And then I ask the attorneys that I know to also incorporate it into the contract, right? So for example, one that we have, I could write, they documented in the note section that seller will pay seller's agent X percentage paid by seller. And then seller will pay buyer's agent X percentage paid by seller, right? It also all has to indicate who's actually paying for it. So I asked my attorney that I deal with often, Sue, and I'm like, hey, did you incorporate this into our contract? She's like, yeah, I did, but you know what? What I realized.
You went away.
There's a fly?
No, a spider.
Oh, I like spiders. They kill mosquitoes for me.
Mm-hmm.
So what this attorney says to me is, yeah, Lily, I'm incorporating it into my contract like you asked me to, but what I've noticed is that no other attorney is doing it.
I don't know what they're doing. As a writer, or they put it in the.
No, you know the broker section? There's a broker section on the contract. She puts it in there. She puts it in there for me.
But that contract is not protect the brokers, right?
Yeah, but they will make them think twice about trying to screw us over, right?
Yeah.
It's not really binding apparently, but that's why you should get the compensation, the direct compensation from seller to buyer agent sign.
What were the terms that you put in the,
Hmm?
what were the terms that you have them put in the contract?
What the commission is to the listing agent and paid by who, and what's the buyer agent commission and paid by who. Because sometimes I've had situations, with an agent on my team, Dorothy, where she had a buyer contract, right? And the seller was only gonna pay 1.5, and the buyer had to pay 1.5. So then we would have to dictate that also.
Listen, if it's in the contract, it's more transparency for every side.
Yeah, and the attorneys are not gonna be like, no, why you, because there's some asshole attorneys, right? Like,
Yeah,
no, this
absolutely.
is not foreign, the seller. Why are you paying, the commission also, right? So
Was
why
your
are
commission included in the price, or the buyer needs to pay separately?
half of it? Half of it.
So the buyer will not be able to finance.
The buyer ended up bringing a certified check for the balance.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
If you say seller is willing to consider extort a buyer's broker fee. Willing, it doesn't mean they have to.
Willing, yeah, and then there's a negotiable.
And then you don't
right?
specify how much.
There's a
Might
negotiable.
be,
Yeah, I never like to dictate, and I say to my sellers, like, listen, why are we gonna show our cards first? Right? Let them show their cards first. And I explain to them, traditionally, I would take 5%, 6%, and I would pay out 2.5%, 3%. But now, like, we don't need to show our cards first. The buyers now have to sign a contract with their agent, right? Because these commissions are not decoupled. Like, let them tell us what their commission is, and then we'll respond to it. And when I do that, what I've noticed is that my seller clients come out on top.
Right.
Because a lot of times the buyer agents are scared to ask for a commission.
Yeah, they are.
It is true what we mentioned before, before we used to settle for 1.5 or 2, we didn't ask for more. Maybe not, but sometimes I have done it, but
No,
now I just go and I say the heresy.
I've done it, but yeah, at this point, I wouldn't even hesitate. I was thinking 4% at this point.
I feel bad for the buyer also, because there's a lot of situations that they have to overpay the listing price, and then on top of that, when
I mean, it
ask them for
depends,
more,
it depends, but then you too, you're doing a lot of work, don't think that you're not doing anything.
Yeah, but-
Especially with boroughs.
Guys, there's so much misconception that's going on in this right now. I want you guys to, hold on one second, okay? Sorry, I have like 22 messages. One second.
One day I'll do that.
What did I wanna, I wanted to show you guys. So, yesterday in Forest Hills Parents, are any of you guys part of Forest Hills Parents?
Yeah.
So there was this
Not yet.
one, did you see this one post
Not yet.
by an owner? Give me 1 second, guys, okay? There's so much, misinformation out there. Hold on, I wanna find the post. Okay. So yesterday, an anonymous person posted in the Forest Hills Parents, Facebook page, okay? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
She wrote, "This post is anonymous because I don't want to burn bridges with real estate agents in Forest Hills. Until recently, nationally, real estate agents representing sellers felt entitled to a 6% fee, where half is split with the buyer's agent if one existed. After the August NAR settlement, seller agents cannot get more than 3%. I'm trying to understand why a real estate agent who markets a $400,000 co-op and an $800,000 co-op thinks he or she should receive a 3% commission for each one, despite the task and time spent being virtually the same, except having to walk and talk a few minutes more in a larger size apartment. I fail to see a logical connection between the sale price and a commission based on a percentage of the sale price. The law states that commission is always negotiable, and yet, has any sellers in Forest Hills succeeded in persuading a real estate agent to lower their commission to less than 3%?
Yes.
And if yes, could you please share what percentage was it lowered? Thanks in advance." So a lot of people started to chime in, right?
Mhm.
Giving their opinion to this post. And then of course, a lot of people defending like, oh, you don't understand, the amount of work to sell a co-op and buyer pool for a larger price unit is completely different than selling a lower price unit and things like that, right? But there was this one agent that got so mad. Okay, give me 1 second.
But if the agent got mad at the post, then I guess the agent was defending the agent.
Yeah, so this one agent that does Forest Hills a good amount, she wrote back, "Your understanding of the Argus Naw settlement is incorrect. Read it again. Do you actually think that all real estate agents do is walk and talk? Shame on you. You know nothing. And if you think people's income should be capped, let's go down the list of all professions, especially yours. And let's cap those too, because you don't think people work enough for their income. Doctors should make up to X. Lawyers should only make up to X, etc. This country is not about capping people's income. That's what communism is for. What an anonymous coward you are."
Oh my God.
Beautiful.
This person-
Perfect. Yes.
She didn't even post anonymously. She posted with her name and
What's his name?
Simona Spanica.
Let's go, Simona.
Simona. from Douglas Elliman.
Let's get her over here.
She called this person an anonymous.
October,
Hell yeah.
Yeah, but listen to this, the original post response. So like, the reason why I'm saying this is because there's so many agents that still don't know, like, there's agent responding that still don't know, like, what's going on or how to respond. And then let me read this, what the original anonymous poster wrote. Thank you all for your insight. Some people were describing the work buyer agents do in terms of getting a mortgage co-op application ready. My question only pertains to seller agents. Anna Beagleman, who was an exit agent, she also responded. A real estate agent discussed how much time and effort is involved in this process. My understanding is that a potential buyer simply gets a pre-qualification mortgage letter for proof of funds letter if a cash buyer from a bank. That is not a task an agent has to do. This is a prerequisite to scheduling a viewing. So she's also not sure. She doesn't even know what a co-op involves. No, pre-approval is not sufficient. This is not a task an agent has to do. This is a prerequisite to scheduling a viewing. As for viewing it, from an hourly paid perspective, it should also be noted that seller agents are marketing multiple properties simultaneously. They make the seller sign an exclusivity contract where you, the seller, cannot hire a second agent or sell the home yourself without compensating your agent. But the agent can market homes in Forest Hills that directly competes with the home you are trying to sell. Talk about a conflict of interest that is considered legal. And even show buyers these homes on the same day your home was shown. I appreciate your acknowledgement that commission is always negotiable. It just doesn't seem that way in reality when agents state matter-of-factly, my commission is 3%. So it goes back and forth.
I'm sure of that.
I didn't see that.
You know what, I might want to join that, just so I can read it. Ooh, look at that.
But that escalated. So
one day. But this person that was
Anonymously.
yes, didn't fight back.
she,
Yeah, but the way that she did it, yeah.
Does she at least post her name?
no, she's anonymous.
Everything is anonymous.
Yo, something's swerving around you.
But then when you have to say it wrong, it's something weird.
So the point is, guys, there's still a lot of misconception with what's going on with these NAR changes, and you're gonna see it. If you're part of any of these neighborhood pages, I mean, you can read and you could see so much confusion that's going on right now, right?
Sounds like a miracle.
No.
Lily, I have a question. This is Juan.
Hmm?
It's Juan. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I have a question. Great panels, guys. There, good job. This is the question. I have a listing I'm going to be posting today. The seller agree to pay 5.5, is it? 4% for the listing agent and 1.5 to the buyer agent if they bring the buyer. Now, if the buyer comes without an agent, what happened with that 1.5? I can cash in that for me?
No, what do you have on the form? The listing form should have a section for the seller's agent, right? And then unrepresented buyer.
If you
Okay.
put anything there in that form,
You only get 4.
yes, you won't be able to cash up that 1.5. So make sure that if you want it, then you have to put it in the, I need to see the form, I don't know, I just made my own map here. On the other side, you have to put the total. Like,
So I have to put all together then, the 5.5, and then I decide.
yes, but discuss it and make sure that they understand.
So what you would put is 4%, right, to the listing agent, and then under the unrepresented, you would do 5.5.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
Okay.
can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Right, that was part of my question, that scenario Juan gave. Seller is willing to give out 1.5%. A broker comes in and the buyer is given 3%, but he if he knows he can get 1.5% off of the seller, wouldn't he reduce the offer by 1.5%? The purchase? You
If
know
I
what, where's the benefit for the buyer?
If I was a buyer's agent, I would still comp out the property, tell them where market value is. I would submit that offer based on me collecting my total commission that's already included in the price first,
Okay.
right? And then tell the listing agent that I'm financing, the buyer's financing it in.
Okay, so the seller saves 1.5%.
Buyer fee separately if you could incorporate it first.
So that would make the seller very happy. He's saving that 1.5%, right?
He's not saving it, he's still paying out the 1.5. The buyer's agent would have to get the other 1.5 from their buyer if they're not willing to meet in the middle.
I understand that, but the buyer has agreed to pay 3%.
Correct.
In the purchase, it's in the purchase. But you're saying he'll only pay 1.5% now because the seller is giving out 1.5. So you collected, am I not getting it?
You're not getting it. When I submit an offer, I'm gonna tell the seller's agent and the seller that my offer includes a total commission of 3% to the buyer.
Okay.
Let's give you numbers. Let's, for example, property is 500,000. Your 3% commission is 15,000, correct?
Yes.
You submit an offer, 500, my 3% included. Then the agent comes back to you and say, oh, the seller pays only 2. So you can collect the 1% from your client. So you subtract from that 500, that 1% difference.
5,000.
5,000. So it's gonna be like 495. And that 5,000 difference, the buyer will pay you directly at the closing.
Right. And bottom line is you get your 3% one way or another, right?
Yeah, and then the seller,
Yeah.
I mean, what, like Lily said, it's important how much they're gonna net.
Yeah.
It's not that the buyer will pay 5,000 on top of that 500.
But I also think it would depend the market condition, the situation for that particular house, because I do have a colleague who he is getting it separately from the entire price because there's competition for that house. So yeah, what we are trying to get here is that we include it, but you also need to assess the situation for that house. If there's competition, you have to be more aggressive. And
Correct.
of course, the seller is gonna like to net more and you can collect your commission separately. So it will depend.
That's absolutely correct. And from a listing agent's perspective, when I have a multiple bid situation, there have been agents that said to me, don't worry about the commission, I'm gonna collect it from my buyers. And that makes their offer so much more attractive if, as long as their offer is in fact.
But even with that situation, like with that 500,000 purchase, you can just subtract your commission completely, 15,000. And you can just give them an offer of 485 and say, don't worry about it, I will get paid by my client. This way, they have no idea how much is your client is paying. And they're not kind of, I don't know, jealous that they could have won. So you could have just said, my client will pay me separately.
But I have a question because the way I have been doing it, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Is that I tell my clients, I'm gonna make we're gonna sign this contract together and this is something that you need to agree upon. I charge 3%. If the seller is paying any type of commission, I'm gonna deduct it from whatever I'm charging you. So if the seller is paying me 2%, you're only responsible for 1%. And I do explain this, that every listing is different. So I will speak to every agent and they have been telling me what the seller's paying. So I do tell my clients, I already have 3 offers like this that are accepted under contract. And what I do is that I share the contracts with the lawyers and I let them know, I do have a contract with my buyers. The seller's paying me this, but the buyer's responsible for this. And I do not put it on my offer, what the buyer's paying me. Because you don't have to. I was on the meeting with the lawyer with EXP's lawyer, and she said, as long as you have that contract, you only have to deduct it. Like if the seller's paying you 2, you deduct it from the 3, and your buyer's responsible for 1. If they're paying you 1.5, then your buyer's responsible for 1.5.
That's
But
correct.
you need to have the documents given to the lawyer, and just make sure that that contract is up to date, and you won't have a problem getting paid.
That's correct. But there are gonna be times where the listing agent will just tell you to just include your commission in the offer. Like they won't tell you what the percentage is.
Yeah, the way that you have been doing it, Anna, your question was if you were doing it correctly or not. You are doing it correctly.
Yeah,
but
you could do it that way.
listing
There's no,
agents are disclosing, but they're gonna be listing agents that won't disclose right away until you include it in your terms and conditions of your offer, so.
yeah,
I had one that told me, oh, my seller is paying something, but it depends on your offer, and it depends what you want to put on your offer for the amount, whatever amount you want to get paid by the seller, just put it on the offer. And then if you're getting something paid by the buyer, then that's fine. So we actually did it. I did it like that. They accepted the offer, and we're on the contract.
yeah. I mean, there's no like set ways to do it. Just know that once you have a contract, there's different ways to structure it, right? You could work it into the price, you could work partially into the price, you could work it not into the price and collect it direct from your client.
If they pay directly, the client pays you, can they still finance it?
There will be a seller's concession. Right? Because you gotta add it into the finance. That would be the seller's concession portion. You guys understand? There was somebody who did like a poll, like are you guys part of the real estate mastermind group too, or no? No, it's on Facebook. I think so too. So there's someone yesterday that posted this. Just to give a quick snapshot on what this change has done, he wrote, I've spoken with somewhere between 25 to 30 listing agents for homes I've shown since August 17th. So far, this has been my experience. 1, I haven't specifically asked how much, if any, their seller is offering for the buyer agent compensation because it literally doesn't matter. 2, I have, however, asked if the seller is open to offers that include buyer agent compensation. 3, exactly 100% of them said yes, oftentimes before I even asked the question. 4, probably 70% of them told me a specific percentage their seller is offering, despite me having not asked. So they openly disclosed it. If there's anyone still spinning themselves up over this stuff, I encourage you to all please take a deep breath and exhale slowly. We are going to be just fine. Right? So Anna, the reason why I don't like to openly disclose, right? And this is just a perspective from a listing agent's side. I've had agents give me low commissions of 1.5% to 1% on some of the listings that I have. But if I had openly told them that my that my seller was gonna pay 2.5% or 3%, they could easily just go and write up a new contract, with their buyer and work something out on the side where I'm gonna collect 2.5%, I'll contribute to your closing costs or some shady crap, So I personally don't like to openly disclose what the compensation is because, that's between the buyer and the buyer's agent. I don't care what they are going to collect. All I care about is what my sellers are gonna net. So I don't want to show my cards first.
Okay, I also have one more question.
Mhm.
Because as agents, we're all supposed to have our agreements completed before we go out and view properties with clients. If you're putting in an offer, and the offer gets accepted, but then if you're putting in an offer and then you ask the agent, oh, what is the percentage that the seller is paying? You should already have that contract signed from days ago, right? Before you even saw this property, before you even put in your offer.
Yeah, that's the.
How can they make that change? Isn't that illegal? Because that should be illegal because you're not doing what you're supposed to do as an agent. You
Yeah.
should have it dated prior to.
And from my experience, there's a lot of agents not signing buyer contracts. And they're pretending like they're signing buyer contracts. And then they're waiting for me to tell them what their commission is. So there are a lot of agents not following the new rules.
I just think they wanna show the property, they don't wanna lose those buyers, and then they say, listen, when we find the property, then we will figure out.
Which you're not allowed to do.
Yeah, that's why those buyers, they gonna say, oh, you're the only one who's asking.
And when you submit an offer, Anna, you shouldn't be asking them what the buyer commission is. Just incorporate what you have in your contract in the offer.
Yeah, like.
So you don't, if you did it, if you were already shown the property and your buyer already wants to buy it, right? Just submit the offer with your commission in it. Then the listing agent will present it and then they'll respond to you. And they'll say, no, my sellers are netting more, or there's a stronger offer, or they'll counter you and they'll say, we're gonna counter you at this price and the most my seller will pay is this percent.
Okay.
I just think working with the buyer without an agreement, it's similar, it's technically the same, like working with the seller without any agreement. It's like an open listing. Don't be upset after the, seller lists with somebody else, because you don't have agreement with them. Same with the buyers, you will show them properties and then they will submit an offer to whoever they want at the open house or. Like, I remember my buyers at the beginning, I worked with them 6 months. And they said exactly, we're never gonna wanna see this, or this building, we hate them. And then I was working with them, showing them what they've been asking me. And then one day they called me, they said, oh, you're not gonna believe, I passed by and wasn't at the open house. At that building, they say, we hate that. They walk in, it was an exit agent by that time. They loved the apartment. They gave him full price offer, cash. And they called me and they said, oh, you should congratulate us. The agent is from your company. They've been thinking that I'm getting compensated. And the funny thing is that I spoke with that agent a couple of days prior about that listing, and he said, there is no activity. I will do last open house, and then I will drop the price like 50 grand. And my fault. I didn't explain how that worked.
Yeah.
I didn't have agreement in writing. I didn't explain that if you submitted an offer to other agents, even from my company, I'm not getting paid. And then, I was only blaming myself, but I'm just saying, sign the agreement.
I think those situations like that, we had to go through at some point or not, so we understand why we need to do certain things.
We've all experienced the pain, guys.
But it's just a question, do you wanna learn on your own mistake or on somebody?
Yeah.
That's it.
You guys gotta do it the right way, because you get used to doing it the wrong way, you're gonna get burned. You're gonna get burned. I see it all the time.
And it hurts.
It does hurt.
It hurts your emotions.
I think it's time for us to start setting new standards for how we conduct our business, and especially for new agents, just do it the way that we're saying to do it, because we already passed through a lot, so.
Yeah. I mean, think about it this way, right? Do you wanna just deal with like 5 serious buyers that have signed contracts with you, or do you wanna deal with like 20 maybe, that are just like, that won't commit to you, that could easily backstab you at any moment, Like, you need to guide them properly.
And they were not doing this on purpose.
Yeah,
They're nice
obviously,
people.
they're
It was
not.
my fault. I didn't sit down because I assumed they liked me enough.
So you didn't get paid at all, you didn't talk, hey, they're my buyer, and they went.
To whom? They went to the open house.
They
He
gave
showed them the
offer.
place.
But they were your topics for them.
I did not sign with them.
She didn't have a buyer-client
I
relationship.
did not have signed with them. It's just, we've been working for quite some time. Oh my God. Yeah, it was like at the very, and after that I said, no freaking way, I'm signing the agreement. And out of 10 people who will reach out to me, maybe 2 will, and it's totally fine with me, but I think back then you was just explaining, listen, I can represent the seller, or I can represent you,
Mhm.
where you want me to be.
Yeah,
And of course, the people with the logic, they will say, well, of course me.
yeah,
So, okay, then for this, you don't want me to show you all the properties that have been offering the highest compensation, right? You want me to show you everything, which would work with. So my fee is standard 3%. That's how much I charge for my service, no matter what. You're not paying me those 3% on top of your offer. It's gonna be incorporated. Just sign PMP. And it can be 1-day agreement, 1 week, 1 month. I don't wanna work.
yeah,
6 months.
yeah.
Do you feel that with these agreements now being signed, if people are getting them signed, do you think we're gonna start seeing an increase of buyers attending open houses and showing
Yes.
out their agents? And then
Yes.
saying, oh no, I have an agent. And if that is the case, what would you recommend should be our response as a listing agent?
I'm okay. I'm okay, like,
Giving them access, showing them the property, giving them a tour.
yeah, yeah. So Ed was saying, do we see an increase in open houses? Absolutely. And some of these buyers are smart now, you know, they're like, they'll come in and they're like, unrepresented. You know, and they'll like automatically disclose that they're unrepresented. But yeah. And there's also leads that we get and, you know, my team is following up with them and they'll say, no, we're not signing anything. We'll just wait for an open house. So buyers do know what's going on and it's gonna become the new norm. And the ones that are touring open houses most likely are just window shopping still. They're not ready to make that decision anyway.
That's how I always felt, that if they're not signing any agreements with you, it's probably because they're not ready. Like they're not ready to actually initiate.
There could be a number of reasons, or there's also buyers that say, I've bought 4 properties already and I know what I'm doing, so I'm gonna just deal with the listing agent directly.
So then what are you doing here? Get out of my office, right? That's how we do.
Yeah, so there's gonna be people that want your service and there's people who will not want your service, right? And you guys just gotta decide who you wanna work with. But also the last 2 weeks, we talked about value proposition, right? Like, what is your value proposition? Like, what are you gonna do differently for them? That'll show them you're worth that 3% commission that you're charging. Or are you gonna just open doors?
Can you just one more time,
Mátalo.
you reply when you with the seller or the listing, speak about the commission? So how much, Lily, how much is your commission?
Have you followed, what has been going on with, the real estate industry?
I heard something that I don't need to pay the buyer agent anymore.
That is technically true. So what the settlement has done is that they have decoupled commission. So when we sign this listing agreement, there will no longer be a section where we indicate what a buyer agent commission is. We only have to worry about what our commission is.
So how much is
And
your?
that's gonna be 3%, regardless of, if a buyer comes in or not, we're only looking or focusing on the listing side of the commission.
So your commission is gonna be 3%.
Mm-hmm.
What if we're doing open house and then the buyer comes and?
In the event that there is an unrepresented buyer, which is very rare right now because the rule says that every buyer touring a property should have an established buyer contract with a buyer agent, right? But even though it's rare, if that should happen, because of the increased liability and the increased amount of paperwork that we're gonna have to do, the commission will now also increase, and that would be 6%.
And in this situation, could you represent?
I still fully represent you. My full fiduciary duties are still to you. And the buyers will sign an agreement that they fully understand that they have absolutely no representation. And if they disclose anything to me, like, oh Lily, I love it, let's start at 300,000, but I'm willing to go up to 330. My job is to protect you, and I'm gonna tell you that they're gonna go up to 330, let's not take 300.
And it's at 50% on the other side sounds too high, if you go lower, but, you know, it's
No,
your
because with the added liability and with the added paperwork, there's actually a lot of work done that needs to be done on the buyer's side. right? And you guys could discount yourself if you choose to. It's up to you, right? You could say, if I'm gonna handle both sides, okay, we'll reduce it to 5.5 or 5. Up to you.
I spoke with, Rowe with one agent in California, and he said in this situation, he's representing the buyer also. He's doing dual agency. When I told him that I never represent the buyer, in any of my, when I double sided, I was represent the seller, but no, I represent the buyer also. But then, you know, how the seller educated that he's saying, I tell them that, I will just give you an offer like the amount you net. So I'm not gonna negotiate.
What I usually say is that in the event that there's a dual agent relationship, then all information that is shared is all transactional. But if an owner is really adamant about me, like I have a closing on Thursday where the seller was really adamant that we don't double end or we don't have dual agency. So I've said to them, in the event that a buyer calls me directly, right, we will designate an agent to represent the buyer. So it would still be dual agent because we're under the EXP umbrella, but with designated sales agent. So my fiduciary duties are still strictly to you. So you have signing, right?
Yeah, but even if it's direct buyer to you, you can still sign with the direct buyer that you represent the seller.
Yeah, so then that's an unrepresented buyer. That's not a dual agent relationship.
On the unrepresent, there's the represent. There's your commission and then the commission that you would receive by representing unrepresented buyer. How would you justify the work that goes into working with an unrepresented buyer?
We just talked about that, the added liability and the added paperwork.
What does that look like?
Now we have to work with the attorney, with the mortgage broker, we have to attend the inspection, we have to facilitate all those appointments. You know, it's all time.
Majority of lawsuits, you know, is from the buyer side, so the liability is significantly higher. On top of that, we need to make sure that the buyer is fully qualified, right? I would do that, of course, but we take it a step further by actually speaking with the mortgage broker, dissecting their documents, ahead of time, right? Putting together the board application is also a tedious process.
But it's like your job is being.
My job is to review it after it's completed with the buyer's agent, not to put it together.
And by the way, it's such an important step.
You guys have to know how to explain it confidently.
You like with an agent, she prepared the package and she just called and she said, okay, I'm just gonna drop it today by the manager. And I said, send it to me first, I will see it. I wrote like at least 20. Everything was realistic. You know, I'm just saying that that's a crucial step.
So I actually show my sellers, I don't know if you guys know, we use Slack, right? So we'll go through an entire list of all the corrections that's needed in an application. And if I find like a good one, I will show the owner, like, you know, let me show you, a buyer agent submitted us an application, and this is all the mistakes that were found, right? So, you know, section 4, this is missing, look, section 10, this is missing. So if you guys have a template already of past corrections, you need to not just tell them, show them, right? So that it actually confirms like this is, look at the amount of work that needs to be done.
Okay, right, based on that commission, so the seller is telling you, but I don't have to compensate the buyer, right, anymore.
You don't have to, everything is negotiable and it's completely decoupled. That contract that the buyer has with their agent is none of our business.
Okay, so when they submit an offer and they will say commission is X is included, I may just say I'm not paying anything, so they can get compensated by the buyer.
You can, but if it's a great offer and they're extremely qualified, my only concern and your only concern should be what you're netting. right? Because what if every single offer that we're getting is a lower offer, less qualified, but they're collecting from their buyer? Like, it doesn't make sense, right? But we have a strong buyer. Yes, they're incorporating their commission, but you're netting a higher amount, and you know they're gonna
I
pass more.
think they've been worried that they have to pay, I mean, it's like one
I
point four.
understand you think you're paying it, but at
No,
the
no, no,
end of the day.
they've been concerned that they're gonna pay the transfer fee
Mm.
from that amount. And, the capital gain, you know, that whole thing.
If you work out the numbers to them, guys, it comes out to less than $100. Like, it's the commission, let's even say the commission is $60,000, right? Let's just pretend. 60,000 times
1.8% of the transfer fee.
1.825%, $1,000, $1,095, right? In the event that it comes down to $1,100 difference, you could try to ask the attorney to say that they'll split the transfer tax. So I've done that before, where you guys ever sell co-ops where they need a minimum price per share requirement? Right, and we need to inflate the price to make everyone happy. I've had attorneys actually say the transfer tax is being split.
What if some sellers saying to you, you know, I don't wanna pay the capital gain?
Your capital gains, you're exempt up to $500,000.
I know, but it's more. For
Mhm.
example, they bought house for 500 is done, house is 1.4.
Mhm.
And if they say, you know, I just hear that a lot lately, they say, I wanna be a million, and the rest get cash.
Yeah, that's illegal. Those are not those. Yeah.
I feel like
So you could talk to your attorney about that, but I don't know if it makes sense for the seller to agree to that. Yeah.
I feel like the commission conversation always comes down to what we believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the fight is always.
With your own, it's all in your head, guys.
So. when we
You
sit
talk
there-
yourself out of it before it becomes an issue.
Yeah, cause I took on a listing that couldn't get sold,
Mm-hmm,
and if I'm not mistaken, they were probably paying out 3%.
mm-hmm.
Like total, 3%, like they were willing to take 2 and pay out 1%. It was
Yeah.
a co-op too. Co-op needed work, complete gut rental, like it was bad. It was on the market for a year and a half. So she saw me doing work, referred it over to me. I met with them and I went straight for the 6. He didn't counter me.
Yeah.
He didn't say, oh, do you think, he mentioned, you know, so-and-so said they were only gonna charge me 4%.
Mm-hmm,
And I said, yeah, but did so-and-so sell it?
mm-hmm.
So I mean, they didn't charge you anything, you didn't get sold, you're stuck here paying maintenance, you've been here for a year and a half, what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so luckily we're in contract now, but it's just, like, if you're kind of straightforward with your information, then I don't see them really kind of going back and forth. If you're iffy on the information you're relaying, then of course, who isn't gonna check you on it? But if you're solid and confident, then I don't think they're gonna give you much of a kickback.
No, again, with the co-op, it wasn't really difficult to get 6%. A lot of times when I give them that form, and they say, by the way, how much the compensation, so I always say, this, here's all your expenses, and then all those expenses, I put attorney fees, my fees, and, transfer fees. And then I just say, here's all your expenses, and this is approximately how much you're gonna end up. I'm not emphasizing like, oh, my fees is this, I just say, this is for how much you're gonna list, this is how much we're gonna end up. If they like that bottom number, they never question the compensation.
They're just looking for the amount.
Yeah.
And it's true, that's all they're really looking for.
Mhm.
It's just commission is always the first thing I think people look at, because that's all we hear, is, oh,
Yeah.
what's your commission, what's your commission?
It all depends, you know, the marketing plan we're gonna choose, you know, the price. We specify, it all depends on your time frame, so when we meet, that would be one of them.
Like, no one's looking at the hours you spend every week doing open houses on their.
Like you see on the post that
Chef
she
or
mentioned,
husband.
people thinking that you
Then
open the door,
and
and
that's
next
it.
day is the closing. You
If
know?
you guys are not part of that, Facebook page, join it, right?
I don't see that post, I don't know, but I still did not see that.
Look for it. Look
I'm
for
just
it.
saying, I have a listing right now, we're gonna close on October 3rd. This Jackson Heights property was on the market for 4 years. And when I approached him, he interviewed Esther Harris, he interviewed so many agents.
Wow.
And then he said, you're the only one who asked 6. She said 4, the at the house.
Yeah, she's always
And
one.
then, said no freaking way, so we listed as a rental first, but then he said, yeah, you're right, it just doesn't make some financial for the seller. We went on the contract in December. October first, we're gonna close. I'm just saying, you see how
10
long?
freaking months.
Yeah, the management was ridiculous. She lost our package, then she's like,
She lost the package.
she
Sorry,
said,
I have a
"Shut up,
listing
guys."
appointment tomorrow.
You know, there were so many things,
Then
Then-
make a wish.
that the board is on vacation, I'm just saying,
Yeah,
9 months, we're gonna close October third.
or dealing with other agents that don't know how to.
I think once in a while, when we just have open discussions, guys, I feel like it's great because we could all share our like obstacles, our experiences, any confusion we have that's going on. Like, it's such a good feeling to know that we're all experiencing like the same things.
Well, I'm looking for very cold right now. Agents,
What do you think about co-op market? Does it feel a little slow or it has picked up?
It's still a little slow, but I still have offers getting
Yeah,
accepted.
I think.
It depends on the building.
It's a fund that also it's a big opportunity.
So for my studios, I want bedrooms are going pretty ugly. I think the 2 bedrooms and 3s are taking.
I think people are looking for the value at this point. Like, if I can afford this, I'll buy it,
Yeah,
you know, so.
there's very
rather
little
than-
inventory for houses right now.
The end of the selfish, really not more.
Colin, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
so-
Out. Is your listing?
That's
You're
what I-
not listing, yeah, then you're not listing, and it's double the price.
Important,
This
yeah,
month.
important.
You can do it, you can do just Elizabeth, but we're gonna do it too, like, you're gonna show them the picture. Well, Ryan always.
Like 10, 15
For
minutes.
me. How's the condition? Yeah, but it's cheaper.
I sold,
Well, it's lower floor.
already sold.
Yeah, fully renovated.
Yeah, that was the one, that was the one in the back, so to me,
How much you
yeah,
got it for?
but a lot of feedback I got from those buildings were that
Yeah,
it's
we
either
were very-
watching the train
Yeah. And then.
or that they're facing the back.
Alright,
But they-
bye guys, I got to run now, sorry, nice of the space in the back.
Thank you.